Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier, and this is the Piracy Show. Now, obviously, ship updates this week attracted a lot of attention. Some of it not so positive, some of it positive. And when you look back at the events over the last weekend, and certainly the community's reaction, I think that it's very clear that, well, let's look at the sales numbers. Yeah, this really hasn't been, I think, the banner event anybody at CIG or largely in the community would have hoped for. Now, if you start to ask the question, how many of those ships ended up being turned into Banu Merchantmen, or how many of those sales are actually just Banu Merchantmen right up front? Yeah, it just doesn't look like this ship really, spoke to the community in a very big way. And when you look at the community Q&A on the ship on Spectrum, the number one upvoted comment is, will the ship come with a periscope so that we can see clearly with it? Will they resolve the view issues with this ship? I mean, yeah, it seems that the community shares a lot of these concerns with this ship. And so, yeah, I don't feel that anything I said was unjust or inappropriate. So when looking at the video, and now normally when I do a piracy show, I go and I take the comments from the video and I kind of respond to them, but with over 212 comments and a lot of that being a lot of back and forth, I kind of thought instead today I would editorialize and just kind of try to address the topic of, because obviously there's criticism out there, and how easy it is for someone like me to just sit back with a YouTube channel and just run my mouth and be, an asshole or be a freak and a weirdo with a YouTube channel who makes comments like this and makes gamers look like freaks and weirdos because we worry about all these stupid little things that don't matter. And so, I'm going to address that. I'm just going to take that head on and discuss why I think it does matter and why having these conversations is important. Now, up on the screen is a screen grab from a video made by Radiant Flux. And I'm going to put a link in the description below. I urge you very, very much, if you have not already seen this video, to click on that link and go check out this video, because he has used the model for the ship and he's basically superimposed it over the game to give you an idea of what the view from inside the Banu Defender is and how that would impact your gameplay. And once you see that video, I think, given the comments from the Q&A thread, comments on his video, and in general people commenting on Reddit, a lot of people have said, I didn't think it was that big of an issue until I saw your video or until I saw the screenshots, and then people are going like, wow, okay, this is a little bit off, this is a little bit weird. And so none of this would have happened, none of this, this issue would have possibly have just gone by the wayside if no one had commented on it, if no one had criticized it and said, hey, this is a problem. Now, when you look at ships like the Hurricane spurned on a turret fix for all ships because players criticized turret gameplay, in particular relevant to the Hurricane sail, which is so dependent on its turret to make damage, and players criticized it, and Chris Roberts himself replied to that, and there is now a turret fix going in for 3.0 as a result of that criticism. The Cutlass, all the changes that came to the Cutlass, a lot of that is relative to player criticism, and something that CIG even acknowledges in the video that we had missed the mark. And so when people like me make these videos, when we look at ships, we don't just go, ooh, shiny, and reach for our wallets. We ask deeper questions. We look at things and we say, how is this going to apply? How is this going to affect my gameplay? How is this going to work? When I look at a ship and I look at the Defender, is it going to have enough fuel to follow the Banu Merchantmen around to escort it? or any other ship? What are the limitations going to be, and how's that going to play into the gameplay? We ask deeper questions like this. We don't just care that, oh, is it all color matched? Is it all pretty? We want to know how these important things are going to impact my gameplay. Are there hidden issues here that I might not be seeing? And so we ask questions. We make videos about it. We make posts on the forum. We take screenshots. And more or less, we get involved in the game development because this is open game development. And I don't recall any video that CIG has ever made, or any post that Chris Roberts has ever put up, or that anybody from CIG has ever put up where it said, listen, we got this, just sit back and shut up. I don't remember that post. I might be mistaken. Please point it out to me if it exists, where they've told the community, shut up, we're making the game, just give us your money. And if it's out there, I would like to see it. I think it would be interesting and one hell of a conversation starter, but I don't think that it is. Now, when you look at the kind of the reception to this sale and the conversations that it has generated, it's kind of obvious that the community is kind of looking at this ship and scratching their heads. And I'm asking in my video, I'm saying, you know, where in the entire process, in the entire development process, was the person who's supposed to ask the question, okay, is it a beautiful object? Does it, you know, does it have the right textures? Does it have the right colors? Yeah, okay, good. Does it work? Does it fulfill the one basic underlying principle that everything in Star Citizen should have? Because remember, it's supposed to be a living, breathing universe where everything makes sense and things work. Does it work as a ship? And the answer is, well, it has a severe limitation in its cockpit view area. Okay, justify that. Why does it have that? Does it have an augmented reality system that allows you to see exactly how a ship is aligned, even if it's hidden by one of those prongs, so that you can compensate for that, so you can know, is my hull aligned in the correct way so that all my fire is going to land on that ship, or are two of my guns going to go over and under and only two of them are going to hit? These are questions that you might want to ask. Now, you might not think that these issues are particularly all that important. And certainly, if your experience is limited to more PvE titles, you might not be aware of how important these things are. But when you're in the Star Citizen universe, and this is the thing, this is where I think a lot of people get tripped up, is they look back at Privateer. Like, I look back at Privateer too. I remember playing Privateer when it was brand new. I still, I think I still have the floppy disk somewhere, but, well, probably not. But yeah, whatever. But I still remember playing the original Privateer, and there was a lot of things that just were of no consequence. I mean, you could say that the weapon placement on the Centurion was wrong, but it really wasn't that big of a consequence, because all you were really dealing with was a PvE environment. And, you know, NPCs, no matter how intelligent games try to make them, even back then, were never really all that challenging. I mean, you could, generally, once you found the beat, once you found how to manipulate them and how to basically cheese the mechanics, you could defeat just about anything if you had the patience and the willpower to do it. But in a PvP situation, which Star Citizen is an open universe and a PvP universe, a lot of these things start to come to bear a lot more. And you have to look for every advantage, and you have to try to curtail your disadvantages. And that's kind of what I talk about in these videos, is I'm talking about how do you maximize your advantages and how do you minimize your disadvantages. And I look at things and I say, you know, when I talk about ships, I don't focus so much on what size engines or what size shields it has. Oh yeah, it's got size 4 shields. But really, we don't have all the different shields that are going to be in games, so we don't know really what value a size 4 shield is. It could be great, it could be terrible, it could draw way too much power, it could make too much of an EM signature and make you a magnet for missiles. We don't know yet. We will find out in the future, and there might be 20 to 200 balance changes to shields or to guns. Yeah, it has And that's one thing in my video. I thought there was actually more size 3 guns, but there's actually only 4 size 3 guns on this ship. But, size 3 guns might have an issue, or they might just all be size 3 gimbals with only size 2 guns. We don't know yet, and those numbers could change 50 times between now and release. So those aren't really important, but you'll see me a lot of times talking about foundational concepts and talking about structural deficiencies in certain ships, this being one of them. And this ship is built in with a weakness in it. Now, should every ship have these weaknesses in them for the sake of variety? Yeah, but this is a pretty big one, and this is one that really, if you're trying to build a realistic universe, I don't think the Banu would make this mistake. I think the Banu would look at their ships and say, you know what? Pilots actually kind of need to see what they're doing, especially fighter pilots. It's very important for them to see what they're doing, and it really doesn't take anything away from the model to move those pontoons to the side or to the rear, and you then, once again, problem solved. The ship becomes completely viable and very interesting. So it's this kind of feedback and this kind of criticism of the design that is kind of what helps iterate on the designs and says, maybe there's a process issue here where maybe somebody needs to step back and look at it objectively, and not just as an art piece, but as a functional piece of the Star Citizen universe, as a functional ship, and ask questions like, can we do better? Is this hampering player performance in a way that we haven't fully justified yet, or that we're not aware of? Now, right up, just as a quick interjection here, right here, the footage is going to get a little weird, and you're going to see me more or less just kind of fiddling about outside my ship, because, once again, grown up in the real world, I had some professional obligations today. One of which was I had to participate in a conference call, so you're going to see things stop. So I was multitasking a little bit when I was kind of doing the prep work for this video. And so, I'm at this point, I'm participating in a 90-minute conference call, which was so much fun. So much fun. Being a grown-up, how great is this, eh? Anyways, back to the topic at hand. So when people say, oh, it's just a concept sale. If you don't like it, you don't have to buy it. True, absolutely. But once again, that's not what this channel is about. That's not the videos that I make. I make videos where I ask deeper questions about ships, and a part of the reason behind that is because people put comments, and then I solicit their, I take their opinions, and I go, okay, here's something I never thought of, here's something I didn't see, here's something I need to think about, and I ask deeper questions. I'm just not built to be somebody who is spoon-fed. I like to go out and get my information. I like to figure things out. I'm not somebody who's just okay to just float into things. I want to know how it all works, and I want to ask deeper questions, and I want to do better. Here's an example. I've mentioned it before. I'm a World of Warcraft player, and over the weekend, I managed to get my AOTC achievement, which is AOTC means ahead of the curve, and in this case, it's Heroic Gul'dan. And I looked at my performance over that raid, and I saw for my item level, okay, at my high point, I was doing about 80. I was in the 80 percentile, but a couple of the fights I was a little bit low. So my takeaway from that isn't, yay, I got my achievement. It's like, okay, now next week, how do I do even better? How do I push those numbers up even higher? Thereby making each raid run easier for the group, and just making it a much more enjoyable experience. And how do I squeeze more performance out of my character? Of course, gear will improve things, but how do I improve as a player? Are there blind spots that I'm not seeing? And so I'll go back and I'll ask those questions. And I'll go out and I'll find all these different opinions, different points of view on things, and try out different things. And so, when I see people who, say, oh, if you don't like it, then just shut up about it, blah, blah, blah. That's not what this channel is about. This channel is about soliciting opinions, not suppressing opinions. I don't suppress, opinions that don't, align with mine. I go out there and I say, okay, maybe this person's onto something. Let's see. And, that's kind of the subtext of this channel. That's kind of, the purpose behind it. Like, I don't create this channel to create the hashtag Minion Soldier Army, or to sell merchandise, or to try to, do this professionally. I do it because I'm trying to solicit as many opinions as possible from the comments, so that I can see what other people are doing and what other people are thinking relevant to other ships, so that I can sit there and go, okay, hey, this guy's actually got an interesting idea, but if I take this guy's idea and I take that guy's idea and put those ideas together, maybe there's a chance there to form a tactic or a doctrine, and maybe there's something that could lead to success. I'm looking for paths to success, and I'm looking at everybody's opinion and what everyone's saying, and I'm going, hey, this guy's got the right idea. Or maybe I venture forth an idea in a video and someone says, hey, well, why don't you combine that with this? Maybe that works out. And so that's kind of what this channel is about. That's, this channel isn't just hey, there's a sale going on this weekend, break out your wallets channel. This channel is hey, there's this ship, and they're here. These are the good things about it. These are the bad things about it. What's your point of view? What's your take on it? Because maybe you see something that I don't, and then I can take that and go, hey, you know what? If I combine that with this, maybe I can make something out of that. That's something interesting. That's what, that's kind of why this channel is here. And that's kind of what I do. Now, certainly when there are good ships in Star Citizen, I heap praise on them. And I say, this is a really good ship. I really like this ship, The Cutlass being a very clear example. There are things that I've said that I really like about the Buccaneer, and there are things that I don't like about the Buccaneer. Those wingtip guns, not a fan. I think they should be under the chin, like right down under the cockpit, but that's one of my concerns. That's one of the questions I'm asking. Why are they out there instead of, inside and not, right underneath the cockpit or something like that? I don't think that that's ever been really answered in a justifiable way, and I would like to see that question answered. So it's kind of why I make these videos. Now, certainly, some people get super defensive in the Star Citizen community. And I think a lot of that has to do with certain criticisms, certain issues that have arisen. 2015 was a particular year for that. Things that I don't deal with in this channel, because I don't deal with people as individuals and say, oh, he said, she said, blah, blah, blah. That's, once again, not why this channel is here. And so as a result of those events, there are certainly certain people in the Star Citizen community who are hyper defensive of Star Citizen and perceive any criticism of any facet of Star Citizen as an insult to the game itself, and or perceive it as an attack on Star Citizen itself. And so whenever they hear some dissent, or they hear someone saying, hey, I think there might be a problem here, they immediately step in and just go on the attack and say, no, you're wrong. You don't understand it. It's a concept sale. You just don't have to buy it if you don't like it. And it's like, no. What you don't understand is that, this is a game and this is something that you're selling. There are certain deficiencies here. I'm not sure that you're aware of them. So if you could go ahead and just justify them a little bit for me, I would like to know why. Or is it possibly a problem in your process where you might not be asking all the questions that you should be asking in designing these ships? It's one thing for an artist to create a beautiful piece of art, and certainly when you look at Star Citizen, I don't think there really is a ship that, even if you don't agree with it aesthetically, you can't look at it and not see the merit and the hard work and the technical skill that's displayed in creating those ships as visual objects. I don't think that I've ever seen a ship where I've been like, okay, whoever modeled this or whoever textured this is lame. No, there aren't ships like that. There are ships that I don't agree with aesthetically, but they're still achievements. They still look amazing. And so what I'm doing is I'm asking technical questions and gameplay questions. I'm not really overly concerned about how pretty it is. I'm concerned about how it works in the Star Citizen universe. And if certain deficiencies are perhaps intentional or unintentional, could you enlighten us and justify those deficiencies? Or maybe it's something that you missed in your process that maybe you should look for in the future. Just saying. Being a Star Citizen backer isn't just about just handing over money and then just sitting back and cheering. It's about community feedback, and we've seen it again and again and again with the changes to the Javelin cockpit, with the changes that were brought about by the Hurricane, the Cutlass, and on and on and on. It's all because of backer feedback, backer criticisms. People sharing their points of view and their different ideas about how ships should work in the Star Citizen universe. There's nothing more detrimental to that process than not, sharing your opinion, and just by sitting there and saying, well, I have nothing to say about this, everything's fine, and I'm also going to go out and attack anybody who says anything negative, even though I maybe don't even understand what they're trying to say in their video, or I maybe don't see the value in the point of view that they're putting forward. Instead, I'm just going to attack them because I think that they're attacking my favorite project, and so I'm just going to go out and go after them because of that, without actually thinking it through and saying, yeah, you know what, there does seem to be a bit of a problem here. It's not an insult against the artist. It's saying, hey, how did this slip through the cracks? There's a problem here. Maybe you guys need to look at your process, and that would help save time in the future. If someone looked at a concept ship and instead of having another problem like this again, instead said, you know what, hey, let's add this to our process, let's add this to our creative process and ask these questions, so that way when the next ship comes out, even if someone doesn't like it aesthetically, they're not going to look at it and say, hey, there's kind of a big blind spot on this ship, and considering it's a fighter, you might want to address that. It's about improving the game, which as a backer, that's part of your responsibility, is to step in and venture your opinion on things and to give feedback. That's what part of the Star Citizen process. It's kind of like it's kind of like politics. If the only time you can say that your opinion doesn't matter is if you don't vote, because if you don't vote, then your opinion really doesn't matter. But if you do vote, your opinion matters. So that's just it. I mean, you got to be able to give feedback, and you can't just go out there and solicit the opinions that you agree with and suppress the opinions that you don't. You have to take the good with the bad. Just like this YouTube channel. I mean, if I just sat there and read these negative comments and then went and sat in a corner and cried about it, like, don't you people understand that I have emotions and they're soft and delicate like flour? I'm just going to shut my channel down because someone disagreed with me. Boo-hoo. No. Like, I accept the fact that I have YouTube channels and I have to deal with criticism, but at the same time, like, I'm going to be open to that criticism, and I'm going to watch it, I'm going to read it, and I'm going to say, okay, here's where I agree with you, here's where I don't agree with you, or, oh, hey, you know what, this guy made a good point, so maybe I need to take that into my whole thought process. That's kind of what this whole thing is all about. Now, that's been a lot of editorializing, a lot of blah, blah, blah. But you know what? Let me give you an example. Let's have a little story time here, and let me take you on a bit of a journey outside of the Star Citizen universe, and let me show you what happens when a game developer doesn't listen. When a game developer just says, you know what? This is how we see the thing being built, and we don't care what the players say. We're just going to do what we want. Let's see what happens when a game developer behaves in that way. Now, some time ago, I did a bunch of videos about this game here. It's a game called Armored Warfare. Essentially, it was a clone of World of Tanks, but placed in a different time period. So using modern armored vehicles in these sort of arena-esque battles that if you're familiar with World of Tanks, you'll know what I'm talking about. But they did one thing that World of Tanks never did, is they included a PvE mode, which was, you know, compared to World of Tanks, a pretty cool thing to have. Now, in the PvE or the PvP department of this game, realistically, they didn't offer all that much difference than the PvP mode that you would already have in World of Tanks. They were still like a lot of armored vehicles crammed into a very small arena, competing with one another, and it really wasn't groundbreaking, shall we say. But the PvE mode, it kind of showed the possibility of what could emerge. You know, you could create a much larger game and a much more expansive universe that would allow you to tell the stories of these PMCs in the future helping to fight these battles to liberate towns or whatever. But it gave players a taste of what you could do with a game like this, especially if you applied it to a much broader universe and opened up these battlefields a hell of a lot more, and tried to create a much bigger game out of what was essentially one of, I think, the biggest deficiencies in World of Tanks is that all you ever got to do with your tanks was play in these little arena battles when you could do so much more for them. Wouldn't it be cool to roll around in a King Tiger in a big open world game and, you know, explore the game and go fight battles, you know, dynamic content over huge battlefields and, you know, stuff like that. And of course, this game was developed using the CryEngine, and we know that the CryEngine is the basis of Star Citizen, so we know what the CryEngine can really do if you're willing to put in some time with it. Now, as the development of this game proceeded and as the open beta, you know, went on and on and on, the PvP community basically died off. In North America, it happened a lot faster than in Europe, but the PvP community died off. There was a lot of people venturing, you know, different theories as to why it happened. And my personal belief is that there was nothing original about the game. There was nothing really all that interesting about this game, you know, over World of Tanks, which already had its established community, which this game was obviously trying to draw from. The problem is that along the way, I guess by more or less by accident or good fortune, they did find a niche that was successful for them, which was PvE. But the developers wanted that, you know, they wanted that PvP feel. They wanted to succeed in the PvP market. So how do you think they attacked the problem of too few players in PvP and too many players in PvE? How do you think they solved that issue? Did they look at PvE and say, okay, here's something that maybe if we iterate on, we can grow this and build up a bigger, more robust community, and then over time use that community to kind of fill out the PvP, as people will naturally drift into it as, you know, they want to explore different areas in the game? No, that's not what they did. What they did is they severely curtailed all the earnings in PvE to try and force players to play PvP. As the PvP numbers continued to dwindle because the foundational problems in the game were not being addressed, the PvE numbers started to dwindle too, because those players were feeling unfairly shortchanged by the game, and it was becoming that much more difficult to earn and progress for them within the game's parameters. So their interest began to wane as well. So how did the developer address this as this became kind of obvious? Well, they created a new PvP mode with even higher rewards that was even less rewarding, and there were even fewer people in the community to engage in that mode. And so, you know, they were just simply, you know, they were just standing out there in the surf trying to stop the tide from coming in, and they just couldn't do it. And even though, you know, they had been developing this game, they just couldn't see the forest for the trees. They didn't realize what was going wrong with Armored Warfare. Now, at the time, I had gone on the forums of this game, and I had said, you know, what you need to do is you need to look at PvE as possibly a building point, a foundation, and build your community from there. And you need to look at the game you're developing and the kind of universe that you're creating and possibly say, hey, you know what? We can do some very interesting things here. Now, I had mentioned, talking right here with the Crytek engine and what is obvious, or with the CryEngine, what is possible with that engine. I said, you guys need to look at what Chris Roberts is doing with Star Citizen. And since you guys are using CryEngine too, maybe ask some questions over there and see about possibly building a large, expansive, open battlefield where players can play together, or, complete dynamic missions and make things much more engaging. You could open up entire war zones the size of countries and let players play within that area. And I don't know about you, but if someone told me there was an open world tank game where you could progress the same way you do as in World of Tanks or something like that, and gain experience and gain levels and earn credits to buy new tanks, and you could go out and do dynamic content. You could form up with players and form clans, and you could say, okay, you drive the tank destroyer, I'll drive the artillery, and Bob can drive the main battle tank, and we can all work together, and we can go on and take on even more difficult objectives and earn even greater rewards. If there was a large game like that, I'd be very interested in playing a game like that. I think that would be really cool, especially if you're using some of the work that CIG has done with the CryEngine. I think that would be an amazing game to play. And I would definitely play that. I would definitely back into a game like that. And I mean, even if there was a subscription fee, I would probably pay it if it was reasonable, because I think that would be a very interesting game to play. And if you had a game like that, and if you developed in that way, you might develop such a big and robust community that you can then add and revisit PvP and maybe do it in a way that's very interesting for esports and things like that. And so you can have your cake and eat it too. You just have to accept the fact that you're going to have to do a little bit more work up front. And I think that's a sound way of thinking, and that's a sound way of looking at it. But like a traditional PC game developer, they tried to take the easy way out and they killed their game. Armored Warfare is basically a dead game now. In the North American market, it's hard to even get a decent amount of PvE battles, much less get any PvP battles, which is basically non-existent. You have to go to the European server to even hope to get that. And that's why when I say that Star Citizen is an important game, because it looks to bigger ideas, that's what I'm talking about. This is a perfect example of a game developer trying to take the easy way out and basically committing suicide with a very promising title, because they like to think in small, limited ways. How many premium tanks can I sell? How many DLCs can I sell off of this title? Instead of looking at building the total experience the way that Star Citizen is doing. So those are areas where I will, that I heap praise on Star Citizen as a whole. But I will criticize ships if I think that they're deficient, or if I think that they have flaws, and things that aren't just, say, for a game balance reason, but things that are just inherent because of a bad design choice. And so that's kind of who I am, and that's kind of what this channel is about. So I realized that this wasn't the traditional format of the Piracy Show, but with 212 comments, I don't think anybody would sit still and listen to my voice for 2+ hours. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.
Quantum travel initiated.